The other day, I came across an insane community-made ROM hack called Pokemon Fused Dimensions, which includes over 200 unique, bizarre, incredible Pokemon fusions. Things like Galazard, Hongadier, and yes, sadly, also Speegma. This game is based off of Fire Red, but includes fusions with Pokemon up to Generation 8, Mega Evolutions, the Fairy type, and a bunch of moves added from later generations as well. And today, I want to find out if I can Nuzlock this thing. If you aren't familiar with what a Nuzlocke is, basically it's a self-imposed rule set for playing through a Pokemon game that makes the whole thing more difficult. The rules for this challenge are as follows. We can only catch the first Pokemon that we encounter on each route. If a Pokemon faints, it's considered dead and can no longer be used. And finally, the battle style will be played on set. And with that out of the way, let's get into the run. This game basically follows the story of Fire Red. So we kick our run off in the usual way, being greeted by Professor Oak and dear God, what is that thing? Alright, this is gonna get weird, huh? Anyway, we do our usual early game thing and almost immediately we get to choose our starter. Our three choices are the Charmander Ralts combo, Raltmander, the Bulbasaur Zygarde combo, Bulbcore, and the Squirtle Air Fusion, Squiryn. While Bulbcore does seem pretty awesome, we end up going for Squiryn because the other two seem like they would be fine on their own, and this little guy looks like he needs some help. Plus, Water Steel is maybe my favorite type combo in all of Pokemon. Unfortunately, that does mean that our rival will have an ace that is half Zygarde, which definitely won't come back to bite us later. Anyway, we have a quick battle with our rival Gary, which we do manage to win. Then we set off on our adventure through this wonderful, twisted world. We run an errand for the professor, then return to get our Pokeballs. And on the first route, we run into a disgustingly named Bungalow of all things, which we subsequently use all of our Pokeballs on and completely fail to catch. Off to a great start so far. So we buy some more Pokeballs, then on the next route, we do manage to catch the next encounter, which ends up being a Citata, which we nicknamed Daffy. Then on the route after that, we find another Bungalow, which we actually managed to catch this time, and nickname Hole for no particular reason. Next we move on through the forest, where we find and catch the Shroomish Paris Combomon Shrews, which we nickname Shroobs, and from here we have a few battles with some bug catchers with various Weebras and Caterfields. Yeah, nothing off here, just a regular old playthrough of Fire Red. Finally, we arrive at the next town, which is home to the first gym. We fight off the gym trainer and his alien invader Beldshrew, then with a cup full of completely unfounded confidence, we head right in to take on Brock. But before we get into that exciting chapter of this story, I do want to take a second to ask that if you're enjoying the video, you take a moment to do the old YouTube Fusion sub-ike, which of course is liking the video and subscribing to the channel. It just takes a quick second and it really does help me out a ton. Thanks. Anyway, at this point, we challenge Brock. We managed to take out his Lit Dude lead, which funnily enough is what they used to call me back in high school. Then he sends in his Jello-encased ace Solonix. We trade some hits, then swap out because Drippy gets too low. And this thing proceeds to systematically take out Hole, Daffy, and Shroobs. Since I'm playing this semi-blind, I am allowing items from the bag to be used in battle, so we bring Drippy back in and heal with the potion, then finally finish off this Rock Snake. Next, he brings in his Geonedge, which, side note, has to be my favorite fusion so far. And we finish it off with a couple water guns. Now, just like that, we have the Boulder Badge, but at what cost, really? Anyway, we move on out of town and grab our encounter on the next route, which turns out to be an Ixoril, which we nickname Iggy. Then we demolish a trainer with his disgustingly named Speegma, yuck, and from here we head into Mount Moon, where we grab a Lit Dude, which we nickname Litmus, but our first Metaleo, which just looks like a Metapod eating a Celio, and that is a truly terrifying thought. I don't know if I mentioned this yet, but shiny odds are boosted in this ROM. So before we make it out the other side of the cave, we actually run into a shiny Lit Dude, which we catch and nickname Litmus 2, and a shiny Geonedge, which I am so excited that we actually found. Of course, we catch it and nickname it Ween? Now, after beating up the greedy fossil nerd and his Gridoof, Voltrubi, and sweet boy Koffling, Drippy evolves into a Wartron, which is a super badass name for a super badass Pokemon. Definitely my favorite so far. Anyway, our next stop is Cerulean City, where we heal up, then, obviously not having learned our lesson from Brock, we head straight in to take on Misty. She leads with a sweet, and I mean sweet little thing, Dwebder, who Drippy proceeds to mercilessly demolish. Then she brings in the Unibrow Queen herself, her Farracuda, who goes down without much issue. And finally, her last mon ends up being a Bass Fetch. I don't know who decided that Farfetch could mate with whatever fish it wants to, but it was definitely a mistake. Anyway, we get some chip on it, but Drippy is too low to stay in, so we swap to Ween, who tanks an Aqua Jet at 1 HP like a king, then gets big damage with a Rock Tomb, earning us speed control, so we swap back to Drippy and finish it off. Easy. What was never worried. Next up, we head to the Nugget Bridge, where we fight Gary again. We take out his lead Fairy, and luckily his bulb core hasn't evolved yet, so after getting hit with a sleep powder and swapping around a bit, we're able to finish it off. Then the rest of his team is pretty trash, so it goes down easy. From here we fight through the Nugget Bridge sequence, which ends with our good friend from Team Rocket here and his Ekencham. After defeating him, we find a shiny Lilith in the grass, which we managed to catch and nickname Pupper. Next up is this field full of trainers, blocking our way to Bill's house. These trainers do give us an opportunity to see some more new, ridiculous Pokemon, including Electran, Fenneran, and my personal favorite, Apoke. We also evolve Pupper into a Fairy. Then we finally arrive at Bill's house, where this dummy has somehow managed to transform himself into a Clefairy. And you know what? This time, we decide we want no part in whatever this strange experiment is. Later, Bill. Good luck. Nah, just kidding. We literally can't avoid helping here. So we do. And now that we can progress, we take out this Rocket Grunt with his Rocket Chop, grab a Meowbapus, which we nickname Cat, then arrive at Vermilion City. We immediately head out to the route east of the town and catch a monstrous Peakloom, which we of course nickname Yuck, battle a trainer with the new main character of my nightmares, Butterrain, then finally head on to the SS Anne, where we dispatch Gary and his newly evolved Ivyguard, which is starting to become really dangerous. And finally, we help the sick captain with some back rubbies. Anywho, this charitable deed earns us access to the Cut HM. So after catching a shiny Lil guy in the Diglett Cave, we head right in to challenge Lieutenant Serge. Now this fight is something special, and to no one's surprise, ended up being way more difficult than we expected. We lead with Pupper against his Tim Kid, which we managed to take out in one hit with the Play Rough. Then he sends in his main Carino, which hits us with an Iron Tail, but goes down to a 4 times effective Dig. Now this is where his team gets crazy. He sends in his ace Rhyplume, so we swap to Drippy to be immune to the super effective Sludge Bomb, then Protect to scout a move, which ends up being Sleep Powder. We trade a Giga Drain for an Aqua Tail and trigger the heal from the Lieutenant. Then thanks to a lucky miss on a Sleep Powder, we take it out with another 2 Aqua Tails. And finally, he sends in his last Pokemon, Rylossom, which is arguably stronger than his ace. So we swap to Yuck, who thankfully has just learned Toxic. And for some reason, the AI just keeps going for Sleep Powders that don't work on grass types. So we have enough time to chip it down with the Poison and a few digs. That was a scary fight that could have easily ended our run, but we managed to avoid it thanks to our killer instinct. Anyway, at this point we secure the Thunder Badge, then backtrack a bit and head into the Rock Tunnel to head to Lavender Town. On our way there, we managed to catch a few new Pokemon, see some new fusions including Meowpitter and Laranat, who never asked to be born, and we're able to evolve Ween into a Grablade. Then we use the special Link Cord item to immediately evolve it into a Goal Slash. Next we head into the Rock Tunnel, where we see some more new Pokemon like Cupcada and Slowpoke. And right as we're about to exit, Litmus 2 evolves into a Lampeler. Then we use another Link Cord to evolve it into a Chandelem. And that's 2 huge upgrades from our Golem friends. The last thing we do as we make our way across the world is catch an Apoke, which we nickname Slow Girl. Oh, and we also get a free Medinja, which we nickname a bunch of question marks because it confuses me how cool this Pokemon is. Now finally it's time to make our way past this creepy old man out front and head in to challenge the gym leader Erica. She leads with a Lilitails, and we lead with Litmus 2, who outspeeds it and takes it out with a Rock Tomb. Then she brings in her Electrum, who gets some chip damage with Magical Leaf, but goes down to an Ember from Litmus. So at this point, I know we've seen plenty of cursed stuff in this ROM, but let me just warn you that her next Pokemon, Jinzaka, easily takes the cake for the most cursed. Anyway, we get pretty lucky with it missing 2 Sings and take it out with Ember. Then finally her Doug turn comes in and we swap to Pupper to clean it up. Now with the Rainbow Badge secured, we head to the game corner, then into the super secret rocket hideout in the back corner, where we have fun. So much fun. The only cool thing about this place is seeing the new fusions like Kabake, Cough Cobra, and Sab Slash, which is a really cool fusion of Mega Sableye and Alolan Sandslash. Anyway, this whole thing all culminates with us popping a squat next to Giovanni to challenge him to our first of many battles, where we take him, his Marijask, and Metshrew out easily. Now with the rocket threat dealt with for the time being at least, we head to Saffron City, where we take on this imitation gym, which gives Drippy enough experience to evolve into the girthy girl Blastron. We also witness various crimes against humanity, such as Lycanchan, Lycanlee, and Claymeape. Then for some reason, we get the choice between an Abduo and an Abdrio as our reward for beating the trainers here. And I have no idea why anyone would choose the lower evolution. Different strokes, I guess. So we grab the Abdrio, then we head back to the Pokemon Tower, where we smash smack around a very underleveled Gary. But this does give us a chance to see his team taking shape. And you know, with his newest addition, Servados, I don't really like the shape it's taking personally, but that's a problem for later. At this point, we make our way up the Pokemon Tower, catching a Duscon and a shiny Mask. Then we free Mr. Fuji from Team Rocket, which gets us access to the Pokeflute, and we head on our way. On the next route, we encounter a fisherman with a Lildine, which makes me hate Goldeen even more than I already do, which I didn't think was possible. Then we wake up the Snorlax, which actually turns out to be a Wheezconda, which we catch but don't end up using. And finally, we arrive at Fuchsia City, where we head right in to take on the gym leader Koga. We leave with Drippy against his Wheezmecco and take it out with some Iron Heads, taking some pretty big damage in the process. But this does give us an opportunity to set up a Shell Smash, which allows us to one-shot this Wheezconda with an Aqua Tail. Then he brings in his Muckarel, and we swap to Litmus too, who misses a few Earthquakes as it sets up Minimize, and our Candle ends up poisoned. So we bring in Ween to finish it off. Then he brings in his Apple King, which goes down easily to Ween. Now with Koga defeated, we head into the Safari Zone, where we find and catch a Charmeleon, which we nickname Curmudgeon. We come across a Leaf Stone, which we use to evolve Slowgirl into a Flatbrow, and we get the HMs for Surf and Strength before we head out of town. From here we head to Saffron City and go straight into the nonsense at Silphco. And I'll spare you having to watch the horrible teleporter madness that went down in here. We messed around, we found the key, we opened the doors. Then we have our first very serious fight against Gary. He leads with a Stout Fable, which goes down in one hit to Slowgirl. Then he brings in his Venegard. So we swap to Litmus 2. Then we find out this thing knows Earthquake now. Rip Litmus 2. Next, we bring in Pupper to avenge our fallen comrade with a couple play roughs. At this point, he brings in his Beedrazam, who goes down to a Rock Tomb from Ween. Next up is his Serpentine, who goes for a couple Dragon Dances, and luckily Ween is able to live through a boosted Aqua Tail and chip it down with Rock Tomb, which allows us to avoid another casualty from this fight. Finally, his last Pokemon, Vulpua, goes down easily to Drippy, and honestly, I'm gonna need this team to chill out a little bit, Gary. Getting a little bit too strong, okay? Anyway, after replacing Litmus 2 with Curmudgeon, we head in to take on Giovanni for the second time. Nothing too notable happens in this fight, and we're easily able to dispatch the head honcho. Is this the last time our hero sees Giovanni? Who's to say? Anyway, at this point, we head in to take on the 6th gym, and after some more teleporter madness, we arrive at the gym leader, Sabrina. She leads with a Karapno, who goes down to a Shadow Claw from our Mystery Man. Then she brings in Beedrazam, who proceeds to freaking Mega Evolve. Honestly, did not see that coming at all, and didn't think it would know Shadow Ball either. So we instantly lose our favorite team member. But we bring in Drippy, who cleans it up with some Iron Heads. Then she brings in her Tentazong. So we swap to Slowgirl for some reason, and get blocked in on the first turn. Then we land a Yawn. I probably should have known that it would have a Psychic Attack and not done this swap, but here we are. So this thing lands an Extra Sensory, then falls right asleep. Alright, good. Crisis averted, right? Nope. Sabrina has a Full Heal, which she immediately uses to wake it up, and unfortunately, it's able to take out our Slowgirl. Rip. But not before getting poisoned. So on the next turn, it goes down to the chip as we bring in Ween. And Sabrina sends in her final Pokemon, Bravierme, who goes down easy to some Rock Tombs. So now with Sabrina defeated and the badge secured, we proceed to struggle for so much longer than we should have to find our way out of the gym. But we get there. Then as we're doing some backtracking before heading to Cinnabar Island, we find and catch a Gasky, which we nickname Yaki. And we manage to evolve Curmudgeon into the Rule 34 hero that we didn't know we needed, Gardevoir. Now finally, we arrive at Cinnabar Island, where we have to deal with the whole Pokemon Mansion thing before the gym. And some really interesting stuff goes down in here. First, we catch a Smiley Boy Koffling, then we run into the real encounter we want here, a shiny Vulpua, which is one of my favorite fusions in this game and has an awesome shiny as well. So we catch it and nickname it Blue, then proceed to train it up until it evolves into a Ninetales. Also, as we're training, Yaki evolves into a Hongadeer. And in the basement of this horrible place, we have some truly horrifying battles against the nauseating Pokemon Muto. This is a killer design, but boy is it gross. Now, after securing the key from the basement, we're finally able to head in to challenge the gym leader Blaine. He leads with a Hedion against Drippy, and on the first turn it sets up a substitute, but we're able to get through that, then take it out with an Aqua Tail before it becomes too much of an issue. Next up is his Abamar, which, side note, looks like something straight out of Where the Wild Things Are. Anyway, it goes down to one Aqua Tail easy. Unfortunately, we do take a burn from its Flame Body ability as Blaine brings in his ace Pidgeotto, which proceeds to Mega Evolve as we swap to Ween. Its Speed Boost ability is pretty scary, but thankfully we're able to weather that storm and take it out with some Rock Tombs before it gets too out of hand. Now finally he sends in his Fear Cargo that goes down easily to a 4 times effective Rock Tomb. And with that, we've secured the 7th badge. So we head back to the second town that we visited on our adventure, Viridian City, to take on the mystery MIA gym leader. As we're fighting our way through the trainers in the gym, we do manage to evolve Yaki into a hilariously named Greninja. Then we arrive at the gym leader. So it turns out that the absentee gym leader was Giovanni, Giovanni the whole time. Wait, let me get this straight. After openly running a criminal organization, kidnapping multiple people, and some other horrible crimes that I won't mention here, this man just gets off scot-free and is able to return to his life as a gym leader? What? Whatever, I guess all I can do is challenge him. So we do that, and we lead with Drippy against his lead, Dougturn. We're able to take it out with a couple iron heads as it sets up a sandstorm. Then he brings in his Marijask, who hits us with a bone rush but goes down to an Aquatail. Now next up is this Jabba the Hutt looking fish, Wistar, who's able to tank an iron head and land a critical earthquake. But we really aren't too worried about its damage output, so we take this opportunity to set up a little bit with Shell Smash. After one Shell Smash, we finish this beast off, and Giovanni brings in his Dig Growth. We miss an Aquatail on the first turn, so we take a Bulldoze, but we survive and land an Aquatail to take it out on the next turn. Finally, he brings in his Ace Meta Slash, which Mega Evolves turn 1. But thankfully, we land our Aquatail, so we never have to find out what this thing is capable of. And now, with all 8 gym badges secured, we have a tight-ish battle with the thankfully underleveled Gary, then head into Victory Road, where we defeat the Ace Trainers, complete the strength puzzles, then finally arrive at the Elite Four. After some light training and preparation, we head in to take on the ultimate challenge. First, we're up against the Ice-type trainer, Lorelei. She leads with a Mr. Race, and we lead with Yaki. Then, this thing proceeds to just go for super annoying teeter dances until we thankfully manage to take it out with Surf. Next up is her Sab Slash, so we take the opportunity to swap in Blue and set up a nasty plot. After taking a foul play, which does way more damage than we expected, we finish it off with a Flamethrower. Then Lorelei brings in her Snorting, which thankfully goes down to a Flamethrower as well. Next, she brings in her Ace Glawbro, which Mega Evolves, then lives through our Flamethrower and takes out Blue with a Waterfall. Rip Blue. Hopefully that early loss doesn't come back to bite us in the next 4 battles, right? Anyway, we finish it off with Drippy and Ween, and then take out our last Pokemon, Frost King. With Lorelei defeated, we move on to challenge the next trainer, Bruno. We take out his lead Brelsect with a Flamethrower from Curmudgeon, then thanks to a lucky miss on the first turn, we manage to take out his next Pokemon, Aerominable, with a couple Psychics and make it out alive after a Crab Hammer. Next up is his Lycanchant, so we swap to Yaki and take it out with a Surf. Same with his Gigachamp, who takes 2 Surfs this time, and finally he brings in his Ace Galazard, who proceeds to Mega Evolve. After looking this Pokemon up in the docks, we realize that it's part dragon, so we swap to Pupper, who barely lives through a critical Brick Break and takes it out with a 4 times effective Play Rough. And with that, we move on to challenge the Ghost-type trainer, Agatha, who is probably the toughest trainer in this whole building. Her lead Duscon 2 is a tanky menace with its insane normal Ghost dual-type moveset consisting of Will-O-Wisp, Curse, Shadow Ball, and most annoyingly, Recover, plus I'm pretty sure it's holding an Eviolite. So yeah, let's just say I'm glad we researched this fight beforehand. We lead with Gardevoir against her Duscon 2 and hit it with a taunt on turn 1. Then swap to Pupper, who's immune to its Shadow Ball, so we land a Toxin. Then proceed to stall it out. Next up is her Medinja, who is by far her weakest Pokemon, so we take the opportunity to swap to Drippy to set up Iron Defense and max out our attack and speed with Shell Smash. From here, we take this thing out with an Earthquake, same with her next Pokemon, Duscon Z, and her Mr. Grigus. Then she brings in her Ace Greninja, which Mega Evolves. And thanks to our boosted speed, it goes down to an Earthquake before it can do anything too crazy. With Agatha defeated, next up is the Dragon Master Lance, who leads with the prettiest Executor I've ever seen, Hunter. And we lead with Curmudgeon. We make a calculated gamble that with the Sun, we'll be able to survive a Hydro Pump from this Hunter, so we set up Sun with Sunny Day, and thankfully it misses its first attack, so we don't even have to test our theory. Then we swap to Pupper for free as it goes for a Dragon Rush, which our Fairy Fella is immune to. From here, we swap around a bunch, kinda not sure what to do, which results in us taking huge damage across the team until we finally just Toxic Stall this thing with Pupper, healing with Moonlight. But right as it's about to go down, Lance uses a full restore, so we swap to Drippy and try the old Shell Smash thing out, which does work in our favor, and we're able to get off a couple Shell Smashes, then take it out with an Earthquake. Next, he sends in his Ace Venegard, who instantly Mega Evolves and incredibly takes almost no damage from our not very effective Shell Smash boosted Earthquake. Then it fires back with an Earthquake of its own, taking out our sweet, sweet Drippy. Being down bad and desperate at this point, we swap to Pupper, who does pull off a super lucky crit Play Rough to take out the Venegard. Then Lance sends in his Croberia, who goes for a Perish Song as we chip away at it with Play Rough. And after taking a super effective Cross Poison straight to the dome, we have to swap Pupper out and bring in Ween, who thankfully is immune to poison. Then since the Croberia's Perish count is at 1, Lance swaps to his Intellite, who goes down to a Stone Edge after landing a super effective Liquidation. Next, he brings his Croberia back in, and it also goes down to a Stone Edge. Finally, we outspeed his last Pokemon, Flapro, and finish this fight with an Earthquake. So that's everyone in the Elite Four, narrowly defeated, but turns out there's a new champion that we have to take on. This freaking Gary guy again. So with 4 Pokemon to our name, we head in to face our rival with his stupid strong team of 6. We lead with Ween against his Stout Fable and manage to get off 2 Swords Dances as it goes for cosmic power. Then we're able to take it out with an Earthquake and a Stone Edge, burning a full restore from Gary in the process. Next, he sends in his Feralier, which we managed to outspeed in one shot with an Earthquake. And now he brings in his Veneguard, who of course Mega Evolves in a super scary fashion, but we stay in and tank the 4 times effective Earthquake, which we're sure will live because of our ability Sturdy. Then we fire back with a Stone Edge, and thanks to the high crit ratio, we're able to one-shot this thing with a critical. At this point, he brings in his Serpedos, and thinking our Steel Boy has served his purpose, we decide to stay in and get a free switch after sacking our friend to a Leaf Storm. Thank you for your service, Ween. From here, we bring in Pupper to do the old Toxic thing, and after swapping the team around a bit to spread out damage, we do manage to take this snake out even through a couple full restores from Gary. Next up is his Beedrazam, who thankfully goes for a Future Sight and a Calm Mind, allowing us to take it out with Play Rough. And finally, he's down to just his last Pokemon, Ninetark, which goes for a couple very scary nasty plots as we land a Toxic on it. After stalling for a bit, we managed to narrowly survive a Fire Blast on 5 health and finish this thing off with a Play Rough, which means that by the skin of our teeth, we have pulled it off. We have successfully beaten a Nuzlocke of Pokemon Fused Dimensions. This ROM hack was awesome, and I highly recommend it to anyone who's looking for a fun, interesting challenge. Anyway, till next time.